screen?
Yeah, I can see your screen, Fatima.
Okay. So the agenda for today, we're going to be looking briefly into Agile methodology. And then we're talking about what is Agile testing. We look at the principles of Agile testing, and then we'll be looking at the profile of an Agile tester. And then we'll go briefly into testing at the beginning of a project. And then we'll move on to Agile testing methods and Agile testing lifecycle. And then lastly, we'll be looking at the advantages of Agile testing. So let's just proceed. So in order to fully understand Agile testing, right, it's important that we understand what the whole concept of Agile development methodology involves. And it's more like an umbrella term, and it basically encompasses different practices. And these practices are quite different from the traditional development techniques like that of the waterfall. So like we have here, Agile testing, right, is a way to manage a project. So it basically breaks down the different phases, breaks down the phases of software development process into several phases. And it involves constant collaboration among team members and stakeholders. So according to, based on Agile Manifesto, right, we're able to put forth 4 core values of Agile. And these 4 core values are: one is that Agile focuses on individuals and interactions over processes and tools. And in Agile, the working piece of software is more important than detailed documentation. We also have a third value that says ongoing collaboration with customers matters more than contract negotiation. And then lastly, Agile is responsive to change rather than sticking to a plan. So we'll just quickly go through this briefly. So talking about Agile focusing on individuals and individuals over processes and tools, right? So we want to understand that people, right? People respond to, it's easy to understand because people who respond to business needs, right? And drive, people respond to business needs and drive the development process, right? It basically gives room for change. And with this, right, we are likely to meet up with customers' expectations and needs. And also, remember in Agile, communication is one very core important part. And basically, it's unlike in what's it called, waterfall methodology, right, whereby communication is not really as constant between team members as it is in Agile. So in what's it called, while focusing on individuals and interactions, right, we're able to come up with better stable and quality software products. Then for Agile, having a working piece of software, right, being important than detailed documentation. We have that, we'll notice that enormous time, right, is spent on documenting products as products for delivery and development. So I'm talking about documents like technical specifications, design documents, And this, the time it takes to approve each of these documents, right? Most time it takes time actually. And this causes like a long delay in development. But with Agile, we've been able to eliminate, the documentation process. It's not like it is totally eliminated, right? It's rather it is streamlined in a form that it gives us, we the testers, as developers, gives us the necessary information that is needed for us to do our work. So yeah, that's it for that. Then ongoing collaboration with customers matters more than contract negotiation, right? So negotiation, right, is just basically a period whereby customer and, customers, the product manager, they come together to work out the details of, the software delivery. And being that collaboration is more like a different entity on its own, right? We find out that when customers negotiate this requirement, most times it's often in details, and as such, it takes time. And this is usually done at the beginning of the development phase, and also at the completion of the development state phase. But then with Agile, the customer is engaged throughout the development lifecycle. And thus it just gives room for easier, it gives room for easier development to meet up the needs of these customers. Then the last value, right? We'll find out that the common traditional methodology, like the waterfall, it's rigid, and so it is not prone to change. But this has been avoided with Agile. So with Agile, it basically gives us the intention to, develop detailed and elaborate plan with defined sets of features. So these are like the core values of Agile methodology. And we can see here that, a traditional development approach, right, might separate team members based on the areas they are working. But then with Agile being a continuous process, the whole team, they collaborate together as new features are being built. And yeah, this is why teams need to, implement Agile testing methods. So going over, we'll be looking at, what is Agile testing? So for a layman's belief about testing would be that testing is a process that can stand on its own. It's usually at the end of a development process. But then why build a product and then test last when measures can be taken to actually understand the project quality earlier in the process and also eliminate bugs, right? So let's just take a look at what Agile testing is. So for Agile testing, it is an interactive, self-organized process whereby collaboration governs the ability to deliver quality products effectively. So Agile operates on the principle that continuous testing is a crucial part of development, and that it begins at the start of a project. And because testing is integrated, directly into the different development process, we're enabled to detect bugs faster, and they are fixed faster. So, and they're also fixed faster. So that's it for Agile testing. Then let's just take a look at some of the principles of like the generally accepted principles of Agile testing. So we have here 8 principles. One is that one is constant response. So as testers, right, as Agile testers, we don't just simply test constantly. We're also responsible for providing constructive feedback to developers, to stakeholders. So this is in order to create like a more stable and quality product. The second principle says less documentation. So during the execution of Agile testing, right, it basically requires less documentation. So remember when we talked about the core values, and we also made mention of processes, that is human interaction rather than processes and tools. So this comes in play, whereby we basically need less documentation to really carry out execute Agile tests. Then the other principle says continuous testing. As Agile testers, right, we execute testing endlessly. And executing testing endlessly seems to be the only way to ensure that constant improvement in the product. And then for customer satisfaction seems to be the paramount principle, like the most important principle, because the end goal, right? The end goal of it all is to create a software that is of good quality for the customer. And as such, right, the customer satisfaction is met. We'll also take a look at easy and clean codes, also one of the principles of Agile testing. So like we said, testing is fast, testing is continuous, right? And testing doesn't begin at the last phase of the whole software development lifecycle, but instead, testing is integrated in different phases of the process. So as a result of this, right, we're able to detect bugs are easily raised, like easily detect bugs, and these bugs that are being raised can be fixed on time. So this simply helps in keeping the code clean and also making it simple. Then involvement of the entire team. Yes, the testing team is not the only one responsible for testing process. In Agile testing, both the business analysts, the developers, even the product managers, they are all also responsible to test the piece of software. And then lastly, we have quick feedback. So the business team, right? The business team is involved in each iteration in Agile testing. And with this, right, continuous feedback shortens the time of feedback response. Like this business team are responsible, they're like basically in constant communication with these with customers, and as they are getting feedback from customers, they are reporting back to us, and then this basically shortens the whole It shortens the whole time of feedback response. And
Hi, Fatima. We can't hear you anymore. I think she left the call. Yeah, let's just give
the
her.
following characteristics.
Fatima.
Sorry?
Yeah, we missed you
Yeah?
at some point.
Oh, at what point, sir?
I think if we can just, I think from the 8th or 9th point or so. Yeah, I think involvement of the entire team.
Come again.
I think at the point of you explaining what involvement of the entire team is.
Involvement of the entire team. Okay, so I was talking about, it is known that the testing team is the only team responsible for testing process, right? But then in Agile testing, everybody is responsible. Both the business analysts, the developers, the testers too, they're all responsible for testing the piece of software. And then Agile testing is test driven. In Agile testing, we need to execute testing process during implementation, right? And so this basically helps us decrease development time. And then for quick feedback, because the business team is involved in each iteration, right? Remember, Agile is divided into can be divided into several iterations. So because the business team is usually involved in each iteration, we get to have continuous feedback. So I'm talking about the business team having constant communication with the customers, and in turn, they are able to return feedback from the customers, and this basically helps us shorten time of feedback and also the development process too. And then looking at the profile of an Agile tester, these are like some of the characteristics that, as an Agile tester, you should possess. One is that you should have, a good communication skills, right? Because we made mention of the fact that in Agile testing, right, we get to have constant communication between team members. And then also, as an Agile tester, you should have technical skill sets. You should be familiar with various testing tools and test automation if possible. You should also have the ability to collaborate with others. Collaboration is like the core aspect of Agile testing. So you should be able to communicate effectively and effortlessly with other team members. And then as an Agile tester, you should be willing to embrace change, right? And this last point here, we should have the ability to liaise with everyone from DevOps to business analysts. So this is just like the points I made mention of here. I talks about collaborating with others. Then also, you should have a broad experience in exploratory testing. Then you should be a result-oriented person. And lastly, you should have the passion for delivering value in business. So the fact that you don't, you might not possess all of these characteristics, right? But then with experience, with time, right, on the job, you basically have to. So we'll be moving on to, testing at the beginning of a project. So let's briefly look at this, right? So usually at the beginning of a project, right, we are, unlike the traditional method of testing, whereby testing comes at the end, like at the completion of the software process. In Agile testing, testing is incorporated into the different stages of software development lifecycle. So as a tester, why getting acquainted with the product, right? You should be able to review the product requirements. And during that time of reviewing the product requirements, you will be able to ask clarifying questions. And from there, you can now extract information that will enable you set a quality standard, right? Thereafter, you can create your plan outlining. So your plan would basically outline the testable features of the product. Then with that, you're able to implement a structure. So it's more like a strategy in which the team can be successful at realizing this quality. So in it all, throughout the testing and, through testing and guided practices, the tester would be able to manage quality, implement standards for that product, and then monitor the success for the team throughout the Agile process. So as an Agile tester, you just don't want to, just as, at the beginning of the whole conversation, Mubarak was talking about, do we really practice Agile? So that's a question for everyone. Do we really practice Agile? Because most times we get to find out that in most of our project team, once a software, let's say functionality is being built, we tend to wait till the end when the feature is ready for testing. But then that takes time. It takes time. The whole testing process will take time because at that point, at the end of it all, you will not have to understand what the feature is talking about. You also have to understand the needs, the requirement that has been specified. But with this, right, if you have been able to understand all these points, you've been able to understand the product requirements even before the feature is released. You've been able to, clarify all of your questions. So basically, by the time the feature is released for testing, right, what you'll be doing is you already have your tests, you already have your test plan, you already have your test cases you want to execute. So basically what you'll be doing at that point is you'll be executing your test cases. With that, right, we're able to give faster feedback. We're able to detect bugs early, and then in turn, they are fixed early also. So that's just like the philosophy of the whole testing at the beginning of a project. So now let's take a look at some Agile testing methods. So basically, right, when executing Agile testing, there are several Agile methodology that can help us support us in accomplishing our goals. And these are some of the Agile test methodologies that we have, but then we'll be looking at just 3, which is acceptance test-driven development, behavior-driven development, and lastly, exploratory testing. So for acceptance test-driven development, right? It's so I'm just going to be brief with this. So acceptance test-driven development focuses on involving team members with different perspectives. So I'm talking about the customers, the developers, the testers. So these three people, right? They are called the three amigos. So normally this meeting, so the three amigos meeting are usually held to formulate acceptance tests. So while the customer is focusing on the problem that is to be solved, right? The developer, that's the development team, is focused on how the problem will be solved. And meanwhile, the testing team, their focus is on, their focus is on what could go wrong. So basically, acceptance tests are a representation of a user's point of view. And this basically describes, describes how the system will function. And with that, right, let me just give an example in case we're not so clear on this. So we'll find out that before features are built, right, we already have what we call user stories. So these user stories will come in form of different, okay, let's say, I'll just give an example. Let's say we are trying to work on a feature. Let's call it a feature that enables users to be able to upload their pictures, for example. These these user stories will come with acceptance criteria. And these acceptance criteria, have we been able to come up with the acceptance criteria? The acceptance criteria, we've been able to come up with it based on, customers' needs, which are also called problems, right? So that's what acceptance test-driven development is all about. Then for behavior-driven development, right? It basically improves communication among stakeholders. So all team members will have to understand each feature before the development process starts. You get? So it comes up with like scenarios. It comes up with examples that are called scenarios. And these scenarios are written in a format, when, given, when, and then. It's like a sentence. So these scenarios, right, they hold information of how a given feature should behave in different situations and with different like inputs. So basically, behavior-driven development, right, we already know how the system will behave. And as such, based on how this feature, how the feature will behave, right, we are able to now draft out our test designs and then execute our test. Then lastly, for exploratory testing, so in this type of testing, right, the test design and test execution phase usually goes hand in hand. So exploratory testing focuses, like it emphasizes more on working software over comprehensive documentation. If we remember well, we find out that this is one of the core values of Agile. So with exploratory testing, right, we're able to adapt faster to change. And with this, testers can identify the functionality of an application by exploring the application. You get? So when they're able to understand and learn about the application, the testing, they will then go on with the design and executing the tests and executing the testing phase according to their findings. So this method basically involves you understanding how the behavior, like this is an application is already, the application is already built, right? It just basically needs you to explore around the application. And with that, you're able to identify the functionalities that are needed for, you're able to identify the functionalities, and then you're able to design your tests and also execute your tests. But then these are just like the three main methods. Regardless of the methods used, right? The core, they're based on those 4 core values of Agile. The fact that one, focus on Agile focuses on individuals and interaction over processes and tools. Working software, it also focuses on working softwares over detailed documentations. And then customers, it focuses on customers' collaboration, right, over contract negotiation. And then lastly, they respond to change faster. They respond to change faster over following a detailed plan. So that's it for
Hi, Fatima, you're muted. Can you unmute yourself? We can hear you.
Okay, sorry. So for how Agile testing lifecycle, right? Just like every other types of testing, Agile, there is also Agile testing also has its life cycle, and these are factored into 5 different phases, as we can see here, right? And we'll just quickly take a look into these phases. So the first cycle says impact assessment. So here, testers collect inputs and responses from users, right? With these inputs and responses, they're able to now execute impact assessment phase. So this phase also is known as the feedback phase. And with this, right, it helps support testers to set the purpose and standard for the next life cycle or iteration. Remember, we said that in Agile testing, right, we have several iterations. So in the second phase, which is the Agile testing, the planning phase, right? In this phase, the developers, both developers, testers, stakeholders, and also the end users, they team up to plan the testing process by scheduling regular meetings, and then we're able to understand the deliverables that are required. Then also we have the third phase, release readiness. So in this phase, right, as testers, we have to now review features. We have to review features, and then we can determine based on our test which feature, right, if these features are ready to go live or not, and then which one should go back to the previous development phase. So that's it for release readiness. And then the daily Scrum, sorry. sorry. Yeah. So for daily Scrum, daily Scrum is the next phase of Agile testing after release readiness. So this involves having daily meetings to check on the progress of testing. And then with this, we're able to determine the objectives for the day. It also helps us understand the status of the testing, the goals, and with this, the target of the day are being set. Then for the last phase, which is test agility review. So this is the final phase of Agile testing life cycle. And in this phase, it's so this phase encompasses like weekly meetings with stakeholders to assess and evaluate the progress of testing as against the goals. So that's it for the cycle, testing life cycle. And with this, right, you can now ask yourself, have I really been practicing Agile testing or not? Okay, let's look at advantages of Agile testing. So I have 3 advantages there. There can actually be more, but these are like the important parts that I highlighted here. The first advantage is with Agile testing, right? A higher quality product is built. So because Agile enables testers detect bugs earlier in the development lifecycle, and also with continuous feedback, right, these bugs can be fixed and eliminated. So that is it. With Agile testing, we're able to come up with a product of higher quality because of the constant feedback, constant testing, and also constant collaboration. And then the second advantage says fast delivery. So with Agile testing, right? Since Agile testing encompasses development cycle, right? It comprises the development cycle alongside with testing. That's correct. And with this, we're able to constantly provide customers feedback, ensuring that the product adapts to markets during development and it reaches the customers as soon as possible. Remember that one of the core values of Agile is that Agile is that the working software, right? It focuses on working software over comprehensive documentation. So as soon as a piece of shippable software is achieved, right? We can ship this to we're able to ship this off to customers, and in turn we get constant feedback as opposed to waiting to the end of when all features have been built before we get feedback from customers. And then lastly, one of the advantages is that a happier team. Obviously, with Agile, because of the constant collaboration and interaction between team members, right? We can now create a happier, a more enjoyable and productive workspace. And also, testers, developers, and customers with Agile, they work side by side. And with that, we're able to create, the best products and the best products with the most value. So that's it for the advantages of Agile testing. Yeah. So we can just go on to questions if you have questions.
Fatima.